But think about the framing of best idea wins. That's not a great environment to go into. So now I look like an idiot because you know what? I can't predict the future. And if you really want to know really want to understand what's happening in a situation, and all of a sudden you get really good at planning those things, and you're going to be infinitely better at catching any issues that might be there. And that's such a black belt move. It saves so much, brain damage. But think about the framing of best idea wins. Because now it's your idea against my idea. We're in a competition and I want to win and you want to win and I'm the CEO and I'm going to win. So framing something as the best idea wins, that's probably a bad idea out of the gate because it's going to put anyone that has any competitive nature whatsoever is going to go in there with this idea. The other thing is you might, if we're engaged in competition to see who's got the best idea, that means, and look, a woman, any leader, woman, man, whoever, that's the CEO of a company, they're a competitive person by nature. So there's a decent chance that if you work for me, Dave, there's a decent chance that maybe there's some info I hold out on you. Maybe there's some techniques that I could have taught you that I didn't. Maybe there's some information that I could have given you that I didn't. And now all of a sudden I'm able to win all the time. Well, that's because I'm withholding information or I'm not training you correctly. I am actually depressed and saddened if my subordinate can't come up with a freaking plan that's usable. That's pretty damn good. And it usually doesn't take that long before the person that works for you, now they're in the field, they're doing this all the time, where they go, hey, boss, and their plan is either equivalent to or possibly better than what you would have come up with. Now, listen, you will have the advantage when you're in a leadership position if you do it correctly. You'll have the advantage of being detached. So when Dave, you're a platoon commander and you're running a mission and you run another mission and you run another mission, and all of a sudden you get really good at planning those things. And if I'm doing my job correctly, I'm detached and I go, hey, let me look at your plan. And maybe 1 out of every 3 plans, I go, hey, Dave, you got to remember that there's a piece of terrain feature over here that's going to be a problem. So I should still be able to be a little bit of a tactical genius. But for the most part, I should get to a point where, Dave, the plan that you come up with is not just a minimally viable plan, which is where we may have started 6 months ago or 3 months ago. Now your plans are actually totally legit. Yeah. And the only thing I'm doing is I'm just giving them a strategic sort of 40,000 foot view to make sure that nothing got missed, make sure that you didn't get too close to the planning where you might have missed some bigger picture stuff. So those are some things to work out as well and to think about is, number one, do we really want to frame our planning sessions as people winning versus people losing? And listen, I've known thousands. Have I known thousands? I won't put a number on. I've known many, many, many people that they relish winning with their idea. They relish when their idea is the winning idea, when they frame it that way as a victory. And look, we could probably do a whole nother podcast about how you contend with people like that they've got the winning idea. And it's pretty obvious what you're going to do. You can take the indirect approach. You're going to ask earnest questions. You're going to make them think that your idea is their idea, and then they think that they're the greatest thing ever. And so their idea won. They don't know that it was your idea. We're all good with that. But those are just some things to watch out for. Watch out how you frame things. Look, if you frame with you, if I told you and Leif and Jamie, hey, listen, I want each of you to come up with a plan on how to execute with this client, and whoever comes up with the best plan wins. That's not a great environment to go into. Yeah. It also mitigates the idea of the collaboration of ideas, right? Because your part of your idea is good, but part of my idea is good, and we take them both and mosh them together, and all of a sudden we got a really good plan. As opposed to 100% me or 100% you. I don't want 100% of your plan because you missed some things. I don't want 100% of my plan because I missed some things. So open your mind, everybody. Open your mind. General Meade, Battle of Gettysburg. He's the guy that ran the Northern Union troops. And we talk about this when we go to Gettysburg. The way he would run his meetings, when he'd ask for opinions, start with the junior man to prevent exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Right. So I'm the CEO and I say, hey, how do you guys want to do this mission? This is what I think. At least half the team goes, okay, well, I'm on board with that. Sounds good. I'm not gonna voice my opinion right now. I'm just gonna keep it to myself. So That's a good way to defeat that. People being hesitant and people being too influenced by you when you're in a leadership position. So General Meade would say, all right, I want to know what you guys think. Start with the junior guy.
Yeah. And, as I think about that and the connection you make to that, if I'm in a leadership role and we start with the junior guy, you talked about a concept called the minimally viable plan.
Oh, yes.
And
that's
so
all I'm looking for.
Yeah.
All I'm looking for.
The cool thing is if you start down, like you said, with the junior guy, if he comes up with the MVP, the minimum viable plan, you actually don't even need to go that high. So
another thing that's going on is once I put myself into the category where I'm competing for best idea against you and I'm the boss and I'm competing against you and I'm competing against JP and I'm competing against Jamie.
You're going to follow up with that plan.
Yeah, well, not only am I going to follow up with it, but, Jamie pointed, we had an academy call today and I was talking about being self-aware. And when I got done talking about, one of the things that I talked about was, hey, listen, you are either talking or you're listening. It's very difficult to do both those things at the same time. And if you really want to know really want to understand what's happening in a situation, if you're talking, you're not absorbing information. You're not collecting information. You're not processing what's really going on. You're not listening to other people. So talk less. Shut your mouth. Listen to what other people have to say. And when I got done with that, Jamie pointed out, when we have meetings at Echelon Front, she pointed out to everyone like, hey, Jocko doesn't really talk. He might say something at the end. He might chime in after all the arguments have been laid on the table by Jamie, by Leif, by Dave, by JP. Everyone's put their word out. And I have not tried to formulate my own plan, because as soon as I start trying to formulate my own plan, all of a sudden I'm in the weeds.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be in the weeds. And it's the same thing with, tactical operations. I wouldn't look at a target. Now listen, I'd look at a target. And you know the deal. I mean, if you had to figure out how to do a strike on a surface to air, what do you call it? IADS. What's IADS for you guys? Something different for you guys.
What's it stand
IADS,
for? Integrated Air Defense System.
Okay, so you guys, that's IADS for you guys. Yeah. For me, it's immediate action drills.
Drill, yeah.
So IADS for you guys was an integrated air defense systems.
Yeah, exactly. So
if you had to look at a coastline, you could look at it and be like, okay, here's the general plan. You could figure that out in 30 seconds because you did that for your whole life. But as soon as you start committing and like, okay, what's the altitude of this one and where's this one arrayed? Now all of a sudden you're getting in the weeds. It's better to say, all right, where's the lieutenants? Have the lieutenants come up with a plan. They come up with a plan to attack, to do a strike mission on these integrated air defense systems. And then you get to look at it with a second set of eyes, and you're going to be infinitely better at catching any issues that might be there. So as soon as this CEO is presenting her ideas, she's already taken herself out of the altitude, out of the command position where she can see the most, and she's in the weeds with everybody else and slinging it out for the victory of the idea.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, you've already hit both directly and indirectly. This is all about detachment, and one of the things I've discovered the more I've done this, when I'm we deal with layers of leadership at every level of leader, from CEOs to the most junior frontline leader. When you're dealing with founders, people have literally, this is an idea that they've had in their mind that came up with on their own. I have noticed that detaching for them can be harder. And you understand this, having founded, multiple companies. And also, I know you've worked with companies that's led by the founder and CEO. The ability to detach sometimes can be harder for them.
Well, this is the absolute analogy to that. Is people ask me what's the difference between leading a team and leading a business and leading a family, and the thing is, in your family, it's your family, so it's much harder to detach and be unemotional because it's your kids and you care about them. And you can't fire your kids; they're going to be with you. You can't fire your wife or your husband; they're going to be with you, and that's the way it is. So it's very difficult to detach. So that's why oftentimes when we have to deal with this situation, what we say is, "Hey, it's your baby. I get it."
Yeah.
No one wants to say their baby's ugly. No one wants to say their baby needs some help in something. No one wants to say their baby needs to move in a different direction because they were actually wrong about these various factors. So yes, it's very difficult for whether it's the founder of a company, sure, that's one thing. But when it's like, I have my idea, that idea is my baby, it's hard for me to say that actually, you know what, I'm going to leave this baby out in the woods because it's not going to make it. It's
right.
very difficult for people to do that.
Yeah, and that kind of covers it, is that I'm going to have a hard time detaching from my plan because I'm going, oh, damn, Jocko's plan is better than mine. But I don't want anybody to know that. So I will dig deeper into my plan, makes it even harder to detach. So if you're going to build a team, don't build a team where the best idea wins. Build a team as often as you can where their idea wins. And let them come up with a plan, that minimally viable plan. And then just like you described, it puts you in a great position to ask a couple of earnest questions to help them see something maybe they didn't see. But in the end, as often as possible, let them come up and go with their plan. And sometimes you can do that by keeping your opinions to yourself.
Yeah, it's funny that I like to have, my default settings, and you've got a bunch of different default settings, but one of the default settings that I have is like, I'm going with your plan. Now here's the cool thing about your plan. I don't care if you're my boss, I don't care if you're my peer, and I don't care if you're my subordinate. If I have the opportunity and you come up with a minimally viable plan, regardless if you're my boss, you're my subordinate, or you're my peer, we're going with it. Sounds good. So Dave, you work for me, and we got a project that we need to do, and you come to me and say, hey, Jocko, here's how I think we should do the project. I'm going to look at you and go, oh, it's actually viable. Okay, cool. Let's go with it. If you're my peer and you come to me and say, hey, Jocko, here's how I think we should do this, I'm going to say, oh, okay, that looks good. And if you're my boss and you come to me and say, hey, Jocko, here's the project, here's how I think you should do it, and it's a viable plan, cool. We're going with it. What a beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing. It saves so much, brain damage. It saves brain damage. The minute you say, you know what, your plan's pretty good, that's going to work. And by the way, you gain so much leadership capital. And by the way, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So when Dave comes to me with his minimally viable plan to prepare a brief about reducing cost for this client, and I think, no, I don't think we should talk about reducing costs. I think we should talk about streamlining. And he goes, well, I think we should do cutting costs. And I said, I think we should present streamlining. And we get into a fight about it and finally say, you know what? You work for me. We're doing streamlining. And then we get to the client and they go, we're really interested in cost cutting, right? So now I look like an idiot because you know what? I can't predict the future. Yeah. So why did I put all my money on this bet that it was going to be about streamlining? I'm an idiot. That's why. So you don't know what's going to be in the future. So let's just let's use your plan. And that's such a black belt move. It really is such a black belt move. Let's use their idea. Peer, subordinate, superior, it's going to save so much brain damage. And look, we want to get influence with people. So the minute Dave presents a plan to me and I say yes, all of a sudden I am able to influence him more on everything. Even if Dave's plan was a little bit off. And you're my boss and your plan's a little bit off. And I say, Dave, your plan is off for the following reasons. Well, now all of a sudden you're going to be much more apt to force that thing down my throat. As opposed to me say, okay, got it, boss. Let me take a look at it and I'll come back to you and show you how we're going to execute your vision. Oh, thanks, Jocko. Great. Oh, Jocko's such a good guy. He just takes stuff and runs with it. Next day I come back. Hey, boss, really like the plan you put together. Vision looks great. A couple little adjustments I want to talk to you about. I'm not sure I did a good job telling you about this and this other thing over here. I want to make these adjustments. Does that make sense? Dave's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, go ahead. As long as you got that vision. Yeah, thank you. And this is where, to tie this back together, this is where the keeping your opinion to yourself is powerful. And the minute that you put your opinion out there, you're influencing everything that's going on, especially, leadership position or not. Listen, this is the thing. Leadership position or not, because if I'm working for you and I roll in and say, hey, Dave, here's what we got asked to do by the client. This is what I think we should do. I've already altered the playing field a little bit of how you and I are about to interact. Because if you think my idea is really dumb, you're immediately like, Jocko doesn't get this. I've got to overcome some obstacles here. Whereas if I go, hey, Dave, here's this project we got tasked with. Can you give me some thoughts on a good direction ahead? All of a sudden, you've got a blank canvas. I'm not messing with it at all. And there's nothing better than that. There's nothing better than that. And the reason is because I can't control what's going on in your head. I can only control what's going on in my head. I can't control when I say something stupid or I put a stake in the ground on something, that's done. And I can't do anything to take it back. It's out there. Whereas if I give you a blank canvas and let your thoughts flow, now I can adjust the way I interpret them. I can adjust the way I react to them. I can adjust the way I interpret them. I can adjust the way I readdress them with you. All those things are things that I control now. Whereas when I go and put a stake in the ground, I might have offended you. I might have come at it at a totally different angle. I might have come at it at an angle that's fine, but it obscured your vision of another angle that you would have seen had I kept my freaking mouth shut in the beginning. So it's this idea of keeping your opinions to yourself. This isn't an idea of hey, you need to subdue your thoughts. No, it's actually a way to free your mind. It's actually a way to free your mind because now you're going to have more mobility with the people you're interacting with. And if you can utilize the indirect approach and you can now infuse your ideas with their ideas, all of a sudden it can stay their idea. It just has a little infusion of a little Jocko in it. And now we have the best idea, which is what we want.
That's right.
So there you go. Keep some of those opinions to yourself as long as you can. As long as you can. As always, if you want to dig deeper in this stuff, check out the Extreme Ownership Academy, extremeownership.com. We have a bunch of courses on that. We got 2 free courses right now. One by Dave and me, one by Jamie and me. Dave and I, you talk about the framework of extreme ownership and how to utilize it pragmatically. There's some protocols you can follow that'll help you. And then Jamie and I talk about the obstacles to extreme ownership, of which there are many. And you can easily rationalize not taking ownership. In fact, we should probably do a course about that. Part of the barriers is that you can easily rationalize, but this really isn't my fault, but it actually is Dave's fault, but Dave should have showed up earlier, whatever the case may be. So that's extremeownership.com. You can take some of those free courses. We got some other courses on there. We got a bunch of, well, actually, we have a ton of courses that you can sign up and take to learn leadership. Most important skill there is, because you can't do anything by yourself. You can't. We can't do anything worth doing by yourself. So you're going to need a team. You're going to need part of a team. And that's why we teach leadership. Because if you're part of a team, no matter where you are on that team, you're a leader. So check that out, extremeownership.com. If you want help inside your organization, go to echelonfront.com. We have a leadership consultancy. That's what we do there. Also a bunch of books about leadership, extreme ownership, dichotomy of leadership, leadership strategy and tactics. Now go lead.